seed in our homeland, boys. Let it grow where all can see. Feed it with our devotion, boys. Call it the Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty.
March 5th, 1770. In the snow-packed streets of Boston. The air is thick with unrest, a powder keg of colonial frustration ready to ignite. The Redcoats, British soldiers stationed to enforce the Crown's iron grip, patrol the streets with bayonets fixed, their scarlet uniforms a stark symbol of oppression amid a people yearning for self-rule and freedom from tyranny. Tensions had been simmering for years. Taxes without representation, quartering acts that forced citizens to house these unwelcomed enforcers, in a growing whisper of rebellion in every tavern in town square. The people of Boston, merchants, apprentices, sailors, were pushed to their limits. Something was bound to happen. And on that fateful night, it boiled over. A confrontation outside the custom house escalated into chaos. Taunts turned to thrown snowballs, then stones, and finally the crack of musket fire. 5 colonists lay dead or dying in the snow, their blood staining the ground that would soon become hallowed. This was the Boston Massacre, a spark that fanned the flames of revolution. This was a moment that was not forgotten to our founders, etched in the annals of history by Paul Revere's engravings and the fiery rhetoric of patriots like Samuel Adams. Today, as we explore this turning point, let's remember, liberty isn't free. It's paid for in the courage of those who stood against tyranny, in the blood spilled on the cobblestone streets. Let us always remember those who have paid the ultimate price for our freedoms. May we properly understand our history so that we may learn from it and change the future of this country. Hey guys, welcome to Fathers of Liberty. Thanks for tuning in. Just want to give you guys a quick update. It has been about 2.5 months since our previous recording, and just wanted to let you guys know that we're not gone. We are having some changes, and we're going to share more about those here in a second as Rashawn shares some transitions of life that have occurred. But I just wanted to pop in here to tell you that I'm really grateful for you guys listening, my faithful listener base, and I've got some exciting things for the future for Fathers of Liberty, especially around the new year. We're going to start with a new season after we wrap this one up. But over the Thanksgiving break, I was really encouraged just considering truly the very beginning of the founding of our country, and starting with the Puritans and the difference between Jamestown and Plymouth. And there was a lot to learn there with the Mayflower Compact and all that the Pilgrims were doing. And I'm excited to learn more about it and learn with you guys. So we'll talk more about that. And also, I'll probably put up a Mayflower Compact Patreon episode so you guys can listen to it. But I hope this episode encourages you. But just wanted to check in and say, hey, we're not gone, but we may not be able to be as consistent as we were before, but we will be coming back. And excited for you guys to hear. All right. Thank you. Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in to Fathers of Liberty. We are excited to cover the Boston Massacre in this episode and really talk about what justice looks like. We talked about Charlie Kirk a little bit on the last episode, and I'm sure you guys heard that. I hope you listened to that. And this is kind of a continuation of that in a way. because we happen to be at this part in our storyline of pre-revolutionary, pre-colonial Boston, and we're at the point at which we cover the Boston Massacre as we're marching up to the Boston Tea Party to end our season. This episode, we're going to talk about the Boston Massacre. We hope you love the cold open there, and it's been a bit. We have had a little bit of extended time for these podcast release. And originally, we were trying to do every 2 weeks, but life got a hold of us and kind of pushed them out a little bit. And so we're trying to do one every month, and we're excited to keep that going. And we have a lot of thoughts about the next season of Fathers of Liberty, and really thankful for you guys. And for those who support us on Patreon, we really appreciate it. You make this thing happen. And so, yeah, I've got my co-host here, Rashawn.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I wasn't on the last episode, but you did a great job with the Charlie Kirk episode.
Thanks, man.
And, yeah, a lot has happened since that episode, since before then. Just specifically that incident, and I wanted to touch on that a little bit. It was very heavy and really shocking to see something that blatantly evil in front of your eyes. And it was, I couldn't believe it, when I heard about it. And
so close to home.
It wasn't far from here. And just really, I think, awakened to what time we're in, this period of history, and how the left has become violent. I mean, it's really sad when someone is trying to have open discourse in public and is doing so, wanting to speak with people with different opinions, and is cut down. And it's a tragedy. It's a stain on our nation that something like that happened, and it's really heartbreaking.
I heard somebody say it was like a bullet was shot into the First Amendment. That's what Charlie Kirk was. And so, so it's so important for us to really know our history, right? So we can understand if we've been here before, and what happened then. What do we do now? How did they find a good solution afterwards, or things that they learned in the midst of it that we can try to put in place now for the benefit of our country and the benefit of our patriots? And really that Tree of Liberty quote, the Tree of Liberty is watered from time to time by the blood of patriots and tyrants, and the question is, not many tyrants.
Not a lot.
Lots of blood from patriots.
A lot of patriots.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah. Well, another thing is just to share an update with Rashawn. He's got something to share. I think there's a life transition coming up for him, and we're really excited for that. And I'll just let him share more.
Yeah. So there's been some change in our personal life. We are planning on moving back to Wisconsin to be close to family. And it's been a really hard decision, because we've made friends out here. We've loved the church family out here. It's been great. We've made a lot of friends, and it's definitely challenging, but that's the direction we're going in. And by the end of this month, I guess the end of October, Lord willing, we'll be back in Wisconsin, and probably won't be doing the podcast. Phil will be taking this on and leading the charge, but
gonna miss you, man.
I will be here and supporting as much as I can, as far as from a distance, and listening to the show. And definitely this podcast has inspired, and it has awakened a spirit of liberty in my heart, and I'm grateful for that.
Amen.
And, planning to continue the journey, and finding the local group in that area, like we've talked about, meeting up weekly and discussing what our founding fathers were like, and what they were all about, and learning more about them. And I'm excited about that.
So. Well, thank you, man. I mean, I've appreciated having you on here, and I think it's been a great thing for us to dialogue and get to know this time in history and get to know each other as well, and really learn a lot through it. I mean, it's been a good time, and so I'm excited for your next chapter of life, and we'll see. You know, God brings somebody else in that seat, and Lord willing, and we'll just see. But I think the thing that I'm inspired and encouraged by what you say is that I just think like I pray and hope that everybody that listens to this podcast is engaged in one way or another.
Yeah.
And so us leading that charge with like, you know, what if everybody who listens to this podcast is actually going to try to seek a place of office? You know, we are making an effect and making a big change in our local environment, because it's not all about words, it's about actions.
Right.
You know,
and that can really spread pretty fast if you get along another brother, or and get involved locally and go from there.
Yeah, because somebody's in charge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody's in charge, and we just don't know. Yeah, I was watching a debate the other day of a local city council in Ogden, and I was just thinking, like, it's literally called the city council. Back in Boston, it was committees.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It's official now. It's like council chair number 5.
Yep.
But back, this is like Boston started this. You know, like these guys were like the long room club. You know, it wasn't like chair number 4 in the long room club. It was like, this was the committee, you know, and different committees, and they did different things for the town, for the good of the town. And just how they were not elected. They were just men of renown that knew other men, and they created their own council, right?
Yeah.
And now we elect people, and we don't really know them. Like, we may not, like these guys in Boston, it was like, oh, that's my blacksmith.
Right.
I go to him weekly. I go to him daily. You know, I trust this guy. Obviously, he needs to be in a higher position to help us all out, right? But now it's just changed so much with elections and very low IQ or low capacity people that are not informed, that then can just vote a random guy in because they like his name or they like his face. You know, it's like, that is not at all what it was that it came from. You know,
we need to get back to a high trust civic sphere. Like, we need to get back to people that you can trust, people that are your local, businessman or local blacksmiths really anymore, but we have
car mechanics. I think the best mechanic in town, he should be running for figure something out, you know. Right. But it's really the people in the town being more desirous of knowing those people and being a part of the whole election system, and really getting to know that person from the stage or from face to face, you know?
Yeah. And too much of that is just being distracted with your own personal life and not seeing the good of your neighbor. And that is part of that, is the desire to have people in civic offices that are doing what's best for your neighbor, or what's best for your local community.
Yeah. Seeking the good of the land. Yeah.
And I'm excited for Jace Reineveld. Running for city council here. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
Praying he gets in there, and
vote for Jace. Yeah.
Vote for Jace.
It's going to be exciting. Yeah. We need to be praying. Okay. So I mean, man, excited for your transition, and, don't doubt the Lord's leading. And I would, if quarterly or sometime randomly we can guest host, and that'd be great, man, to have you back on the show. But I'll leave it to you for that, and we look forward to it. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So so really, this episode we're going to talk about the Boston Massacre, and we're also going to talk about the after effects of the Boston Massacre, what really led up to the massacre, and give you the story of the Boston Massacre, and also just really talk about some of the similarities with now in our day, and how there are things that happened in this massacre that we can glean from this story to the now, and really, what does that look like? So yeah, we're just going to give a quick timeline, so you kind of know where it fits in. Through this podcast, we really started on 1765 was really the Stamp and the Sugar Acts, and really the Stamp Act was what led to the Tree of Liberty, which is the Sons of Liberty and the Liberty Riots and different things like that, which is the genesis of this podcast. And we've gone through some of these in episode 1, 2, and 3, and then 1767, so about 2 years after 1765, we had the Townsend Revenue Act, which the Crown and Parliament still needed some money. They still needed some taxes. And so they tried to send some more. And this time it was on tea, on paper goods, on other things. And so they sent another revenue act, and the colonies didn't like it. So 1768 was when John Hancock's ship, the Liberty, was seized. There was really the beginning of the pushback that started happening in actuality. Then, after the Liberty is seized, and there's the Liberty riots as well, that's basically when England gets the idea like, hey, we need to send troops. So September 28, 1768, 2 regiments of British regulars land in Boston to deal with the growing unrest. They are quartered in various public places throughout the city. And I've heard it said that there was 15,000 people in Boston, 2,000 redcoats, and they said 1 out of 3 men were soldiers in Boston.
That's crazy.
It was just, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just the increase in the population is like over 10% just in Boston right there. There's redcoats and
the 15,000 is men, women, and children. And so, and they said that also in a town that's not like the Boston of today, in 1 hour, a person could pretty much walk the entire distance of Boston and see everything in about an hour's time. So much smaller, much less, expanded out like the big cities we have now. And it's interesting because bringing this to the current day, it's kind of like Trump's doing with all these liberal cities, these left cities, DC, Chicago, putting troops in them to quell the crime. We've seen this happen before, right? It was King George, right? Now it's King Trump. And he's putting troops in Chicago, right?
Yeah. So we see how that turned out. So
I
don't know.
Yeah, and it's getting pretty crazy in Chicago. There's a lot going on, but this was in a different way, right? These were still English men, right? These were still people, that were you're supposed to represent me. Mm-hmm. No, I'm your enemy. If you're putting troops at my front door, I'm your enemy, obviously. Mm-hmm. So we've already crossed the line here. So that was really a big piece of this, where there was a lot of troops in Boston, making it very difficult for them. And so it isn't until 1770 that we really have the clashes really start, where it starts the tensions are high. And in 1770, 2 years later, is whenever we have the Boston Massacre. And so it's really over a weekend, where on a Friday there's a ton of chaos, and we'll read a little bit about it, where there's a small skirmish, but it's really adding to the anger and the frustrations and the tensions. And then the March 5th is the Boston Massacre, when that happens. And really afterwards, there's a lot that happens with the trial. And this is a shining point for one of our founding fathers, which is John Adams, Sam Adams' cousin. and who I would say is the justice portion of our three branches. He is the brainchild in a lot of that, and really, it's an incredible piece to point out that John Adams represents in the trial one of the redcoats, and it's pretty cool to think about that and his view of everyone deserves a fair trial and a defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then we go on 1770. It's another 8 months until they go to their cases and actually have them tried because they had to. The tensions were high, emotions were high. The troops did have to leave Boston immediately. The 2,000 troops did, but it wasn't until later in 1770 when they actually had the trials. So then it goes on, and after the massacre, then 3 years later, less than 3 years later, we have the Boston Tea Party, and so that's a big part that we want to really hone in on as we prepare our next episodes. So guys, we just want to continue on, and we're going to open up and share the story on the Boston Massacre. We hope you enjoy. And at last the day came. Snowy and cold at first, but gradually clearing and warmer. On the 5th of March, 1770, Boston was padded with thick white silence. Surely a foot of snow should be enough to keep the regulars in their barracks and the inhabitants off the streets. There had been an increasing number of threats, the town boys boasting they were going to clean up the bloody backs, the soldiers swearing they would teach the cowardly rascals respect for His Majesty's uniform. The 5th of March was Monday. On the previous Friday, an unusually large number of pates had been broken at Gray's rope walks on Hutchinson Street. One of the ill-paid, hornet-tempered privates of the 29th went to the walks, hoping to earn a little money. Sam Gray, a journeyman, employed there but not related to the owner, asked him if he wanted work. The soldier humbly said yes, he did. But the work offered him started a fist fight between them. The soldier was defeated, ran back to his barracks, and returned with a crowd of his fellows. The squabble went on, augmented by more and more soldiers and more workmen. It began to rise to the proportions of a Pope's Day frolic. Among the regulars were Private Kilroy, who was as bad a fellow as was to be found in the 29th. Shortly before his encounter at the rope walks, George Robert Twelves Hughes had caught him robbing a Boston woman of most of her outside clothing. Hughes forced Kilroy to give up his booty. Everyone knew that Kilroy was a scamp, even as they knew that Captain Preston, for instance, bears a good character. These 600 men had, in a year and a half, become individuals. Finally, officers and citizens ended the battle, and the soldiers, wiping bloody noses, nursing black eyes, and counting missing teeth, were forced back to their barracks. They had been defeated by the wildering sticks and tar pots of the rope walk men and were swearing vengeance. Mr. Gray promptly fired Sam Gray. The colonels, although humiliated by the trouncing their men had taken, promised to keep them under restraint. Both sides privately began to watch for a chance to go on with this interrupted battle. The soldiers, especially of the 29th, busily went to work preparing cudgels and sharpening cutlasses and prophesying to anyone who would listen to them the vengeance they would take on Boston. Just how systematic the badgering of these irregulars had been is now impossible to say. John Adams, who never once wavered from the principles of the Whig Party, believed that certain busy characters, seeking to kindle immortal hatred between the inhabitants of the lower class and the soldiers, urged them on to quarrels, re-encounters, and combats. And he pitied the poor tools who had been intentionally wrought upon by designing men who knew what they were aiming at better than the instruments employed. To get rid of these two regiments, without whose protection civil government could not function in Boston, was the avowed ambition of the radical Whig leaders. One obvious way to do this was to goad the soldiers into firing upon the innocent inhabitants. Then public opinion of all political colors would unite to demand their withdrawal. Sam Adams would have proved his statement that you cannot quarter troops on an unwilling town without bloodshed, and Boston would have some martyrs, which has never hurt any political party. There was also the possibility that a popular uprising would take vengeance into its own hands. The Boston garrison had recently been reduced, and there were left only the original 14th and 29th. Many people thought then, and think now, that this was what Sam Adams was leading up to during the winter of 69-70. He had certainly warned towns round about Boston that their help might be needed on that Monday night. Something was going to happen. The snow, already a foot deep, stopped. The sun came out and icicles formed along the eaves. The sun set, the moon rose, and it was night. The colonels did not restrain their men. More of them than usual were out driving the streets in small packs. They pushed and cursed at civilians, who got in their way as much as possible and cursed back. The regulars were at their worst. What John Adams calls the lower classes were out in full force. But by 8 o'clock that night, the air was so charged with dynamite, any flash in the pan would blow the whole town sky high. Captain Goldfinch of the 14th seems to have been a well-disposed young officer, with a failing so fashionable among 18th century gentlemen of not bothering to pay tradesmen. He owed the French barber, Piement, quite a bill for shaving him, and Piement, unable to get a cent out of him, told one of his apprentices that any money he could squeeze out of Goldfinch he could have for himself. By 8 o'clock, outside Murray's barracks on Brattle Streets, a boy had been knocked down and was bawling that he was killed. Captain Goldfinch was standing there as the crowd began to gather. Some soldiers, returning from duty, tried to get down the black and narrow street to their barracks, but found their way blocked. Ensign Mall, in charge of them, lost his head, bade the men make a way for themselves with bayonets. He'll stand by them. Goldfinch intervened, scolded the ensign, and got the men inside the heavy doors of the old sugar house, but a good many blows had been exchanged, and both sides were ugly. Goldfinch himself tried to slip unseen over to King Street, where the main guard was housed, and see what was afoot. So the captain, with the greasy and diminutive barber's boy bawling at his heels, emerged into the moonlit width of King Street. The child pointed at the officer, roaring out what a bad fellow he was, not to pay his bills, also suggesting canine ancestry. The officer paid no heed, but it was too much for the solitary sentry stationed outside the custom house. This man, Montgomery, had been enduring more than the usual amount of snowballs, chunks of ice, oyster shells, sea coal, and provincial wit, which was the fate of solitary sentries. For some time he had been muttering and cursing and saying what he'd do if any came within reach of his bayonet. A large crowd had gathered about him, but he had not been attacked thus far except by missiles and adjectives. In spite of his threats, he had run nobody through. Now he left his box, stepped down, demanded the saucy boy to show his face. The boy smugly said he wasn't ashamed of his face, and Montgomery hit him a glancing blow, which did not even knock him down. Instantly, the crowd rushed him, yelling that the bloodthirsty butcher was murdering the child. There was still a third crowd gathered in the neighborhood that night. This has always been the most mysterious. 200 able-bodied sailors, porters, and other likely street fighters were lined up at this time close to Faneuil Hall, listening to an oration by a tall gentleman in red cloak and white wig. This may have been Sam Adams, who was not tall, but was probably William Molyneux. It was also said that this was Joyce Jr. When the oration was done, the cry went up, "To the main guard!" And there were threats to kill all the lobsters they could find. What had been 3 separate angry groups now all came together on King Street, milling about in the snow in the moonlight, just in front of the old State House. On its corbels strutted the lion and unicorn of England. And now, close on 9 o'clock, the bell of Old Meeting began to ring as though for fire. All over Boston, doors flew open and windows went up. "Where is the fire? The regulars are cutting and slashing everyone. They're cutting down Liberty Tree. The regulars are massacring the people." And yet another cry, "Town born, turn out. Town born, turn out." But others were calling excitedly that the town was on fire. Many rushed into the streets carrying their fire buckets. Boys went too, and Miss Maverick, a poor widow who ran a small shop, flung a cloak about her and plunged off into the snow in pursuit of her 17-year-old son, sure that if trouble was abroad, her Samuel would be in it. He had been doing so well as Miss Greenwood's apprentice, learning the ivory turner's arts. Montgomery was now hard-pressed. Besides the usual cries of "Lobster!" and "Bloody back!" there rang in his ears, "Kill him! Kill him!" "If you come near me," he panted, "I'll blow your brains out." "Fire and be damned!" Montgomery loaded. An enormous mulatto loomed up over him. Crispus Attucks would have frightened any man. He was well over 6 feet, was part Indian, part Negro, and part white. His master in Framingham thought highly of him. He was 47 at the time. Attucks had a crowd of sailors at his heels and a stick in his hand. He poked at Montgomery and said he'd have off one of his claws. The hard-pressed "Lobster" did not fire, but he called in a loud voice, "Turn out, main guard! Turn out, main guard!" His voice carried across King Street to the guardhouse, through the hubbub of whistles, Indian yells, and jangling bells. Instantly, a corporal's guard stepped out of the main guardhouse, followed by Captain Preston, the officer for the day. They had to struggle to cross King Street and reach the sentry, who stepped down and joined the semicircle of level bayonets presented to his assailants. Captain Preston's reputation was good. His colonel called him cool and distinct, but the judgment that sent only 7 men and himself to rescue the sentry was poor. 9 men are enough for a target, but not enough to overawe a mob. Someone yelled at Preston to keep his men in order and mind what he was about. The captain did not answer, but ordered the soldiers to load and prime. The silence at that moment was so complete, everyone heard the rattle of the iron ramrods. Preston put his body between the men and the crowd to keep them from firing. Henry Knox, a plump, likable 20-year-old bookseller, grabbed Preston by the arm, begged him for God's sake to take his men back, for if he fired, his life must answer for it. Preston said he was sensible to it. Now the rumor spread that the guns were not loaded, but when asked, the captain said they were with powder and ball. "Do you mean to fire upon the inhabitants?" "By no means." But Knox noticed that he seemed much agitated. A number of people, Captain Goldfinch among them, were entreating the crowd to go home, not to lose their heads. Instead, they made a sudden, blind rush at the soldiers, those behind pushing on those in front, even jumping on their backs to see. Crispus Attucks was still muttering about the claws. He was going to get off lobsters. He hit at Preston with a stick of cordwood, grazed him, but knocked down Montgomery. The two of them fought a moment for the soldier's musket. In the melee that followed, Montgomery got it and was up on his feet. Now the motley mob of saucy boys, Negroes, mulattoes, Irish teagues, and outlandish jactars, to use John Adams' words, had pushed against the soldiers until you couldn't get a hat between them. Among the soldiers were Private Kilroy, and among the mob, Sam Gray, now out of a job. Kilroy was watching him, Above the hubbub came the sinister word, "Present!" The struggle went on, and then the fatal command, "Fire!" No one knows who gave the order. Unbiased witnesses close to Preston at the moment agreed with him and said that he did not. Montgomery, his hat gone, his bald head shining in the moonlight, fired first at Attucks, who got 2 balls through the chest. Kilroy had not forgotten Sam Gray's leadership of the rope walk men 2 days before. He took deliberate aim at him. Gray, too, died instantly, as did James Caldwell, a mate from a coasting vessel. Sam Maverick had been holding his master's 12-year-old son, Isaac Greenwood, by the hand. At this moment, he threw up his arms, crying, "Fire away, you damn lobster backs!" The British bullets dropped him. He died a few hours later. But Patrick Carr, the Irish Teague, and the only victim who deserves our grateful memory, lived in torture for several days. A number of others were hit, but only these 5 died. Kilroy stepped forward and thrust his bayonet into Gray's lifeless body. The crowd rushed backwards over each other, tripping and slipping on the packed snow as they went. The width of the street was littered with lost overcoats and hats. It was still being said that the soldiers' guns were not loaded with the ball, and some thought all those bundles of clothing on the snow were lost garments. A few of these bundles were struggling and crying out. 3 at least lay completely quiet. Captain Preston, once more in front of his men, was desperately pushing up their guns, demanding they hold their fire, and prevented a second shot. Now, all over Boston, the British drums beat to arms. Soldiers half-dressed, officers with waistcoats unbuttoned, poured into King Street, forming the precise platoons, their disciplined faces stony, their bayonets fixed, ready to resist the charge of the mob. Lieutenant Governor Hutchison, struggling through milling, infuriated masses of fellow townsmen, fought his way to the State House, under whose shadow the massacre had taken place. He was incensed through and through, loathing what seemed to him the stupid brutality of the regulars and the willful fecklessness of the inhabitants. Although the lower classes had been taught by their leaders that Thomas Hutchinson was a more dangerous enemy to their liberties than any minister in England, that night they seemed to have remembered their former confidence in him. He spoke from the balcony of the State House, and it was the last time his people listened to him. He swore that justice should be done, and they gratefully accepted his leadership. So he got the mob off the streets, and the regiments locked up in their barracks. Before sunrise, Captain Preston and his 8 men were under arrest for murder. They were to be tried immediately, and the feeling was so high, no jury could possibly be found in Boston who would not have convicted them. Seemingly, no lawyer would even dare defend them. Whoever did would be mobbed and ostracized. Wow, what a story. Man, that is gripping. I bet you didn't hear that in your public school class, American history. It's just so compelling just hearing that story and really understanding what was going on there and the thrill of the moment. Really looking at this story, there's so much to learn here of just how far we have gone in our government and the corruption in our government and what our political officials stood for back then and how the town was so united. This is such a different thing than we deal with now, where we're talking about Charlie Kirk and what had happened with that. And that's citizen to citizen. We have a lot of these mass shootings and different things like that. And they're massacres in a very different way. It is not government to people. It is citizen to citizen often, but there are nefarious things that we do not know fully what's the truth. Even to this day, there still is confusion on the Charlie Kirk assassin? Was he influenced somehow? And there's a lot of bickering, and nobody's coming to a clear result because it's owned by the government, which is untrustworthy. Even in Trump, it is untrustworthy. And so we've gone so far from where we were in this time period. And there's a lot to ponder on this Boston Massacre. But I hope that was really gripping and a good thing for you to hear and really know your history well, because it's just crazy to think about all the tension that was happening in Boston at this point, and the suspense really that even the soldiers may have had, and the people of Boston may have had. And just to think as well that there was things happening in the background, that there was almost, I don't know if you heard it in there, there was a goading that they even were trying to potentially get someone shot because they knew that that would have a serious effect on the next transition. And boy, did it. This story is so important in the midst of this recalling of the 10 years prior to the American Revolution, because it continues the drumbeat of liberty, the drumbeat that these guys are in Boston are very bold and outspoken and understand the direct threats that the governors and the people have on them, and they're united as a town against their sovereigns. And wow, it's so cool. It's so inspiring to hear that and to think about that. And man, have we gone so far from this, especially the town of Boston itself. It is a very liberal town that is corrupt and needs to find its roots. It needs to go back, because you will lose yourself, Boston, if you do not change and remember these stories. But another thing to consider in this is just pondering basically John Adams. I had mentioned in there that previously with Rashawn that John Adams was the shining light in this. This really is a story that highlights him, because we haven't heard that much about him, but this is where he kind of comes in and uses his talents and his abilities to bring forth something that is intricate to our country, to what we understand about liberty, what we understand about people's rights, citizens' rights, the right to defend yourself, the right that everyone is innocent until proven guilty, which has been sort of flipped on its head now. It depends on what party you are, depends on what favor you have from the government now, if you are already guilty. And so this is a great kind of, I would say, founding doctrine, is that everyone has a right to defend themselves. Everyone has a right to not have their things taken from them, a right to not have the soldiers put into your home, unlawful searches and seizures. This is where we get a lot of the judicial things. And one of the cool things about John Adams and how he was showing who he was that he was willing to defend a redcoat in this Boston Massacre against his own townsmen. And we would hear that and we'd say, man, woo, wouldn't you be on the side of your own Bostonians? But he is such a lawyer figure and a father of that, that he stands up for the rights of those who can't defend themselves. And so I think as I was pondering this and considering this, it is great to see that we started our country off thinking about people's rights, thinking about defense, because it seemed like they were so just taken for granted, and the king had so much power that he could do whatever he wanted. Lex Rex and Rex Lex. And so basically, is the law king or the king law? And so they were in this time. This is the environment that they were in. And we are in a different environment where, yeah, we got the right to defend ourselves. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to plead the fifth. You're right. We have all these rights to protect us, which can be a great thing, but they can also be taken advantage of. And what happens when there's not justice at the end? What happens when the evil deed is not sentenced quickly and not executed quickly? Well, then we just have a bunch of criminals that have rights to be defended, and they're getting their defense, and then there's nothing happening at the end. So basically, crime and justice is not had. Crime is prevalent. People are getting away with things, and there's not speedy, swift execution or swift judicial authority. And we have a lot of confusion in our judges, and one guy can say something and another circuit court guy could say another thing. So it's just, this story really does highlight the judicial system. And there's much more that you could talk about here and learn. And I'm just going 30,000 foot view here just to talk about it a little bit and ponder. One of our founding fathers, John Adams, Sam Adams' cousin. But with that, the trial was delayed till December because of such fomenting anger that the community had, because they would have been guilty right away. And so the government at that time pushed it out till December to let things calm down a little bit. And so it was quite the story of the trial. You can dig into that a little bit if you'd like. There is a series on the Sons of Liberty that mainly focuses on this trial, and it's very interesting. They have a good character for John Adams. But right after this happens, it's the immediate exodus of the Redcoats. They get out of there quickly. They do come back, but it's the Hutchinson recognizes this is too much for Boston to handle right now. Get them out of there. And so this is just on the heels of all this anger and tension that had been building. And there was many other brawls before this that were just really getting the powder keg ready to blow. And the other thing with the Justice Front is they had the trial, and there was, I think, 8 guys that were tried, and I think 5 of them were let go. 2 of them were said to be guilty of manslaughter. I think I had, in the story, you could hear the guys that, I think Kilroy and Montgomery maybe, that were specifically like, hey, we're going to kill these guys. We'll show them. We're the ones with the guns. And so they were charged with murder, with manslaughter. And you know what they did? They pled the benefit of clergy. So as a very religious society that was very focused on its Protestant heritage, and most people were following the Christian Protestant Presbyterian Protestant religion and faith, that this was normal. And what they would do is they would appeal to the clergy and let the sovereign of God in the area give a different sentencing. And so what they got was their thumbs were branded with the letter M to signify that they were murderers. And literally they were put back into duty and shipped off, I think, back to London. So corruption. So they got away with so much. And there was a lot of tyranny here. And it was at the forefront. And so this really angered Boston and angered the people like Sam Adams and Paul Revere, the guys that were really vying for the Sons of Liberty to make moves. And so one of the important things to learn about the Boston Massacre is they continually remembered this as like a festival or a remembrance on the death of these five. And they didn't forget it. And every year they codified this in having festivals, having tributes for these people, having speeches, gathering everyone together at Faneuil Hall, really not forgetting about it. And that's a call for us right now as we have so many things happen that are usurpations or times where, the tyrants really do evil, awful, unlawful things and lead to the death of patriots. So as we consider Charlie Kirk, let us not forget. And the U.S. Senate, I guess, and the House of Representatives, they did pass a non-binding resolution in mid-September designating October 14th, Charlie Kirk's birthday, as a national day of remembrance for Charlie Kirk. This encourages schools, civic groups, and citizens to observe the day with programs, prayers, and ceremonies promoting civic engagement, free speech, and the principles Kirk championed through Turning Point USA. But it doesn't establish a federal holiday. And government offices and schools remain open on the day. And so it's just for patriots to remember this. That's what was really happening. It's not like you go to the British Governor Hutchinson and say, hey, I'd like a day of remembrance for these Boston Massacre. You just do it. You just do it. You just gather your people and you proclaim it and you remind the people that will listen to you and you make an effect there. And that's what was happening. And because of that, we got an incredible speech from John Hancock that was literally right before the Boston Tea Party. And so 3 years later from this moment, and this is also adding into the effect that builds up to the Boston Tea Party, that ultimately builds up to the revolution, the fire of the revolution. So this is a very important time and we cannot forget it. And we have to know it. We have to understand it. And a lot of historians out there, you can listen to them and they will recall the British side or the American side, which one's right, who did what, who shot who, at what time. And I'm not about that. I'm here as an American standing on the backs of my forefathers, and I'm going to follow what they believed, and they were willing to die and suffer for what they were believing for liberty for all here. And so I'm not going to fall into this academia world here on the history of this, but yeah, just a point for us to remember that there's going to be two sides to a story, but we can say, I'm going to agree with this side. We can poke holes in it and try to consider different variations of the story, but ultimately, 5 people were dead in the snow, blood in the snow, and the blood is on the British soldiers' hands. And ultimately, that did not get rectified. So it led to even more chaos and turmoil that led to what we live in today as America. And so I hope this is a good story for you guys to ponder and think about. And we are going to move forward and most likely we will have a Paul Revere podcast, just because he's so pivotal, so important. And then we will cap it out with the Boston Tea Party. And I really look forward to what we have next in the episodes going forward. I hope you guys have had a good Thanksgiving, and we are grateful for our listening base and excited for the future. We will see if another guy jumps in with me to co-host this podcast. I'm praying and seeking men that would be desiring to deepen their knowledge and spread that knowledge out as we read, really research and dig through the dusty books of our history to really understand, what do we need to know now that they're not teaching us, that our children need to know, that are things that are compelling and inspire in you a fire for liberty and a fire for justice. And ultimately, what we see with the Boston Massacre is justice not being had. And so let us call for justice in our land. Let us call and be able to gather people together, the mob that you would say of patriots that would not be willing to get pushed over by either the government or other mobs, and that we would stand up for freedom, that we'd stand up for liberty, and we would remember and recognize those who died for the cause of liberty. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you for listening. Hope you guys take it easy. Fathers of Liberty.
The seed in our homeland, boys, let it grow where all can see. Feed it with our devotion, boys, call it the Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty. Save it from the storm, boys, water down its roots with tea. And the sun will always shine on the old Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty. It will grow as we grow, boys, it will be as strong as we. We must cling to our faith, boys, faith in the Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty.